Muslima here in Malaysia. This is a super special video. A lot of announcements have been coming out in my life. If you're new here, I am Alana. I am actually a Scottish revert into Islam. I've been living in and around Malaysia for the last 4 years, and I first came announcements. I've had so many big announcements recently, but I am now back at Uni Razak studying my masters. So my story with Islam actually begins with Uni Razak. Uni Razak is such a special university for me. I am their student ambassador for this year and next year, which is just one of many other announcements I've made recently. My story of Islam really began there at Uni Razak. So when I came from doing my 2 years at the University of Edinburgh, I had 1 year exchange, and then I had to go back to University of Edinburgh and finish off my undergraduate degree in international business. First of all, when I came to Malaysia, I had no interesting to me. I've never been in such a culturally diverse country in my whole life. So slowly but surely, I started to make a whole bunch of Muslim friends. But before business, entrepreneurial courses I could pick from, a whole host. But for some reason, when I was looking at this page of different courses I could take, I looked at Islamic studies and thought, hey, why not? Why not push myself to learn something completely new? Now, at this point, I only had one Muslim friend who I met, Ramsha. I met her at Edinburgh Airport when I was working there as an undergrad, and she told me a little bit about Islam when I was back in Edinburgh. And one of the things I remember working in the airport, now Ramsha's a very petite lady. She doesn't need to diet. And she was like, no, I'm fasting for religious reasons. And we were like, wow, religious reasons, okay. This was my first kind of introduction into Islam back in Scotland, and I didn't really understand. And I remember asking Ramsha a few questions like, oh, can you drink alcohol? And she was like, no. And I was like, wow, okay. So when I came to Uni Razak, I pushed myself to try and learn a completely new religion. So when I took this Islamic study class, I remember going to the class, I was like, I don't know what to expect. Will people already be Muslim there? Maybe they've been Muslim their whole life, and then there's me. I really should have dressed more properly for that class, but bless, my Islamic studies teacher was so sweet. She was like, Alana, come inside. She was like, Alana, what are you even doing here? And I was like, I just You've heard me talk and reference this class. Basically, we learned about like the 5 pillars of Islam. We really explored the hadith. And I really quite fell in love with the hadith at that point. A lot of things started to make sense in my head. And of course, the tries to preserve life at all costs. And I remember that just like flipped a switch in my head, and I was like, wow, a lot of things make sense now. For example, I don't want to talk much about alcohol, but like alcohol like clouds our judgment. It makes us not even know what we're doing. Remember, so you're literally putting fuel in the fire if you're going to drink alcohol. You know, there's many other things that just started to make sense. And, you know, Islam is all about like preserving a really beautiful definitely in Muslim countries around the world, which is super interesting. So, of course, my journey started to emerge at Uni Razak when I started my Islamic during that time. In these 3 months, I was YouTubing, searching different things about the Quran. Like, I was doing so much research because something inside of me just like got kind of lit on fire. I was like, wow, this is really interesting. This is not what I thought Islam was. If I look to how the West portrays Islam in the media, why is this Scottish girl wearing a hijab and talking about Islam? I tell you now, go speak to your Muslim friends. Go ask them about Islam. Go ask them about the fundamentals. Why do they love to be Muslim? Why are they Muslim? You will get a lot of answers that the West is not giving you, that is trying to twist your brain about. So I urge you, if you have Muslim friends, go and give them a chat. Go and talk to them about Islam. And talking about Muslim friends, during this 3 months when I was taking my Islamic studies classes, was actually my first 3 months here in Malaysia. And as it turns out, when I started to delve into Uni Razak, when I started to delve into my life here in Malaysia, I was surrounded by Muslim friends. I suddenly only had Muslim friends here. And again, I started to ask questions and explore Islam through their eyes. And hey, I'm not saying that's the best thing to do. You should read the Quran and find the fundamentals of Islam for yourself, but it's really interesting to go via your friends and see how they see it and see the beauty in their eyes when they start to talk about Islam. So yeah, I started to have a lot of for fasting. It was time for Ramadan, and this was in 2020, and I decided, hey, I'm surrounded by my Muslim friends here in Bali, why not give Ramadan a go? Now, that first Ramadan in 2020, I was just focusing on the food fasting, to be honest with you. I had learned a lot about Islam just a few months now. You could feel that feeling that, gosh, I'm so lucky to have this food. I'm so blessed to have this food, in fact, when many people go throughout days without eating this food. On Islam, I was slowly going through learning slowly more and more about Islam. Then it comes to this year. Now, as you guys know, Zuleika took me to the mosque. I decided, hey, something inside of me was like, Alana, you need to go to the mosque. I don't know why. I was so adamant I wanted to go to the mosque. So I called Zuleika. I said, Zuleika, I want to go to the mosque. And Zuleika was like, okay, girl, I will come. I'll help you put on your hijab. I will tell you about the mosque and let's go. And Zuleika, God bless her, alhamdulillah, came to my apartment, put my hijab on, and we went to the mosque, and that day was just so special. I don't know if Zuleika just feels like that was just another day going to the mosque, that you know, and I've never been inside before. And we sat at the side and we watched the prayers, we watched like the men get together at the front and the women get together at the back, and I was like, wow, this is so fascinating. What a brotherhood, what a sisterhood. That was my first kind of entry into this whole brotherhood, sisterhood, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then we got talking to some Muslim reverts there at the mosque, and at that point I was asking them a lot about clothing. I was asking them, like, how did you feel wearing this, and they were like, look, it's just all part of the journey. You can't fight these things, you know. If you have to wear a certain way, then we have to wear a certain way, that's all. And I was like, okay. So it was really special to go to the mosque. Guys, this is all part of the story, you know. It's been 4 years I've been learning about Islam, so that was my first real mosque experience, really delving deeper into Islam, learning more about Islam. Then we can fast forward to Ramadan 2023. In April this year, I decided to try fasting during Ramadan, try the whole Ramadan experience again, but this time was a little bit different because not only was I focusing on like the food fasting, I was delving deep into Islam. It reminded me of how I you know, the Woman in Islam book, Quran a little bit, Hadith a little bit, and and just exploring Islam in a way more religious fashion. And you guys know that, you've seen that through my videos, and you guys were so supportive. That was the thing. Like, I know that some of my shorts on Instagram, some of them went a bit viral, and I know like some of the comments from people who don't know me from my YouTube channel were like, oh, why should I wear a hijab? But for you guys that actually know me, you guys were just really excited that I was starting to explore Islam again in a more in-depth way. You guys know that I wasn't Muslim yet, but you were appreciating that I was like almost preaching about Islam before I was even Muslim. On the edge, a lot of you guys I know were praying and hoping like, okay, inshallah, she will be